Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today I've got a first impressions for you, and it's my first impressions of this. This is the MaJohn or the MaJohn N1. It's a metal pocket pen. Join me now down on the mat. Let's take a look at the pen, do some writing with it, and I'll give you my first impressions. So here we are down on the mat. Time to jump on in and take a look at the pen. So here it is. This is the MaJohn or MaJohn N1. Comes in this plastic cellophane wrapper. Obviously it was in an envelope as well, but I took it out of the envelope because we all know what that looks like. Just going to ease this pen out. Slowly it comes, and I'll fetch in my pen stand. This is a pocket pen, and the pen stand, well, it looks massive compared to the pen, doesn't it? It's very simple. To be honest, to me, it looks like a tube. Nice bright red colour. The top, we've got this silver colour. That's nice and flat. Same at the bottom. I wonder if it can stand on its end. Yep, stands on its end. And on the top, quite nicely. That's how flat it is. We come down and then we've got a clip here. That clip. See if I can get in with this hand. A little bit springy, not very much. Hopefully though that doesn't really matter because who goes around doing that to the clips anyway? What you want it to do is just go over the material so it sits in your pocket, sits in your pen bag quite nicely. So the clip comes, I want to say about halfway or just over halfway down this massive cap. Then we carry on with the red. We get to the bottom of the cap and here we've got MaJohn. If I turn it around, there's nothing on the back. Nice and simple. There's the teeniest bit of a step down from the bottom of the cap to the body. Look at the size of that bit of body. It's hardly noticeable, is it? The cap pulls off. It's not a twist on. It pulls on and then it clicks back on. Let's take the cap off. So the section part, wow, that's long. Look at the body. I would say it's almost 3 times the size of this little bit of the body. And then that leads down to this gold coloured nib. Let's take a closer look at the nib. So on here, we've got a nice decorative border. Underneath that, we've got the breather hole. Then we've got a logo, which I think is likely to be the MaJohn or the MaJohn logo. Below that, we've got MaJohn, then super quality, and then finally on that bottom line, it ends with an F because this is a fine nib. So really a fairly standard nib for a MaJohn pen. The nib is small. I would think might even be smaller than a number 5. Now, I've had this pen a couple of days, and when it came, it didn't come with a converter or a cartridge. So I've had to try and use some of my existing cartridges. Unfortunately, the result is this little black bit here. That's actually part of the feed, and that's been pushed out because I've already put the cartridge in for convenience because I had to make sure it went through. As you can see, it doesn't fit very well. There, I've just clicked it back on. Also, when fitting it, it did push that out a little bit. So in that respect, this is the first time I've actually been a little bit disappointed with what came in a MaJohn pen. Normally they come with the converters. I have got a Kaweco converter. I did try it in there. Does not fit, which is a shame because at least that would have been able to let me use my converter. So what I did is I found a cartridge which would fit, which would let me close the top, and then I emptied the ink out of there and I filled it with the ink that I'm going to use. Let's do some size comparisons. So the first 2 pens that I brought in, these are the standard pens that I try to use. So we've got a Lamy Safari and we've got a Pilot Metropolitan. Look at that pocket pen in the middle, doesn't it look small? Let's take off the caps. Uncapped, what I've tried to do is line up the tip of the nibs. Again, doesn't it look like a small pen? It's thin. You can feel that when it's in your hand. It's short. it's certainly not a pen to use unposted. So let's post them. So here they are posted. Again, what I've done is I've tried to line up the tip of the nibs. When you see it like this, the nibs are all very similar in terms of the size of them. Obviously they're different shades, different colours, but size-wise, it actually looks very similar to me. Posted, the MaJohn N1, it's roughly the same size as the Pilot Metropolitan, but still a little bit shorter than the Safari. The Safari I can use unposted, the Metropolitan just about unposted, but this N1 I'm guessing it will need to be used posted. I'm going to swap over the pens and I'm going to fetch in some other pocket pens to compare it against. So the pens I've brought in is a Kaweco Sport, that was 35 Australian dollars. A Cult Pens Mini, made for them by Kaweco, that was 50 Australian dollars. It's also a metal pen like the N1. Then in the middle, the N1, that was 24 Australian dollars. So the N1 here, cheapest of the three. Longest of the three. I find with the Sport and with that Cult Pens Mini fountain pen, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I find that they do, although they're usable, they do sometimes feel a little bit short. So I'm going to guess that the N1, that will feel actually quite nice. It might be very thin. It looks about the same thinness as I see with the Cult Pens Mini, but we'll get a better idea when I do my writing. Now, because these pens need to be posted, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the caps on them now. So with the caps on, well, the N1, it's still ever so slightly longer than the other two. Not by a lot, but it's noticeable. So we've got the shortest being the Kaweco Sport, then we've got the Cult Pens Mini, and then finally the N1. The Cult Pens Mini and the Kaweco Sport, they're both screw-on caps. This one is a pull-push cap. For a pocket pen, I've got to be honest, I do prefer the screwing them on and screwing them off. It could be easy to pull the cap off this when you're trying to take it out of your pocket if it gets caught on something. But I'm being very, very picky about this. What I'm going to do now is clear these off, then we'll take a look at the ink and we'll do a writing sample. The ink for today is by Robert Oster and it's called Rubine. This is a nice red ink and I think it's a nice match for this pen body. As I've said already, I've already put the ink in because I had to syringe out the cartridge and then give it time so it can flow all the way through. I haven't written with this yet, so this is going to be a bit of an experiment. So like we would normally do, where the first time I see it writing is after I've filled it. I've tried to keep it as close as I can to my normal format. So just move this out of the way and fetch in the paper of testing. So this is my normal testing paper. This is a black and red A5 notebook using the Oxford Optic paper. Let's see what this pen writes like. So before I zoom in for my writing sample, here's the pen. It's quite a nice fit when it's got that cap on, when it's posted. If I take that off, I think I might be able to get 2 or 3 characters, but there's no way I'd try to write a sentence with that. Let's pop that back on and let's do some writing. So we've got here a MaJohn. Do you know, I keep wanting to put H in there, as in MaJohn the game, N1, with a fine nib. As said, 24 Australian dollars. The ink, Robert Oster Rubine. To be honest, I'm a bit disappointed at the moment with the way this ink looks in here, because I was expecting a redder ink, whereas this, it's very much an unsaturated red. Drying times, immediate. 10 seconds. Well, after 10 seconds, that's dry. I'm going to move the mic so you can hear the pen write. got to be honest, that's not as nice an experience as I was hoping for. I'm just going to scribble a little bit on a piece of paper to see if I can get this ink flow improved, because the ink flow seems terrible at the moment. Okay, I've been scribbling on my scrap paper, and to be honest, I'm not seeing any difference, so I think this is as good as it gets at the moment. Let's look for some line variation. So no pressure, then applying a bit of pressure. Yeah, we're getting slightly wider line, but I'm having to fairly push on it. Let's do some S's. Line variation, a little bit, but as I say, got to push quite hard, a fairly stiff nib. I've just had a check of the tines because, again, I just wondered maybe the tines are slightly out of alignment. Maybe that's why I'm getting this issue with the ink flow and why it feels a bit scratchy. But I can't see anything majorly wrong with them either. My last test, my scribble test. Going to just do that again. And now I'm getting a nicer red coming out of it. So maybe putting some pressure on it, maybe looking and just checking what's going on. Maybe that's helped a bit. Just going to do another drying test. That seems to smudge a bit more. There's 10 seconds. Yeah, still getting a smudge now. Let's go for the 30-second test. 30 seconds, that's dry. Definitely an improvement over that first test though. So what do I think about this pen, this MaJohn N1? It's handy for a pocket pen, it's a nice size. It's not overly big, but when it's posted, yeah, definitely a nice size. When it is posted, one of the things I found, that top part wobbles a lot. So it's not a very tight fit. I can understand why, because otherwise it's going to end up scratching all this. But yeah, it feels as if it's going to come off. You know, I'm shaking it and you can see it's coming down. It's the first time I can honestly say I've been disappointed with a MaJohn or a Moonman pen. Really am. I don't know. I know I paid $24 for it. I should have really paid the extra $11 and got a Kaweco Sport. I like to try these different pens for the channel though, just to see what they're like. I mean, some people, I think you may enjoy it. It's just for me, yeah, not a pen that I really like. And here, what I'm doing is I'm just slightly twisting the cap. It's very loose, but then at each end it jams, it's sticking. So, I don't know, it feels like it wants to twist off. But then I guess what I'm doing is untwisting the cap. I'm disappointed because with it not coming with a converter, with it not coming with any cartridges, I've had to use what I've got, and that's ended up pushing the bottom here of that feed out. I'll have to get myself a pack of international short cartridges. The short cartridges I've got, they didn't fit in here, so I don't know if it needs to be international short or if it needs to be a special kind of cartridge. As I say, the ones I've got didn't fit. I managed to get a cartridge which would fit and let this cap close. But the results we're getting very inconsistent, I think is the best word. You know, it's too pale up here. We eventually did get some ink flowing, but let's see how long that lasts for. Let me just move the paper up slightly. You know, we've left it a few minutes. Do we get the same? No, it's going back to that paler colour that I can see. So I think the ink, again, maybe because the cartridge isn't quite right, that may be affecting the ink flow. But for me, for 24 Australian dollars, it was worth doing it for the channel. But this is a pen, unless I can get the right cartridge, I've got to be honest, I can see this one being cleaned out fairly quickly and then put in the drawer to fetch out as comparison pens rather than actually as a daily driver pen. So this is my first impressions of the MaJohn N1. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What do you think about the MaJohn N1? Is a pocket pen something you'd gravitate towards, or do you prefer the more standard size pens? Please drop a comment down below. Let's kickstart that conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment. Just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.